Hello again. Welcome back. So, this is the moment you've been waiting for a while. It's been quite some time since I've updated this here home buying recipe. And this week we're going to do it. So, let's get right into that before we talk about anything else. So, this week I don't have stats from Ontario, Alberta, any of these places yet because it's still too early in the month. A lot of places haven't reported yet. So, I will have a complete breakdown of the country next week, as always. But let's start with this update here. So this is the mortgage arrears, and it just hit 0.24% for the month of August. And you can see on the bottom line there, the blue line, I drew a trend line across, and we are now sitting above the previous low from that 2015 to 2020 cycle. So that is enough to trigger my update on the home buying recipe. And I've been waiting for this. This is not a subjective recipe. This is based on objective facts and criteria that it has to meet. And someone asked about the unemployment rate, but that's still not high enough to fulfill that. It's I think last time I did it was at 7%. But anyway, I'll show you that now in a second. But yeah, there it is. It has reached that threshold, and it's going to keep going up, mind you. We're seeing a lot more mortgage arrears and bank sales, which brings me to my next chart here. Is the bank sales. Now, I just did this last week for the October 26th week beginning. So that was a Sunday. I do it for the week. These are all week beginnings on this chart here. And you can see now it's 1,021 active listings on Trab. This is not all-time listings. These are just active listings. A lot of them are always selling and getting cleared off the system. There has been way more than 1,021, obviously, this year. There has been tons of them, but it's just a coincidence that it reached over 1,000 when, of course, the mortgage arrears reached over 0.24%. And yeah, I have it marked there. This is from my X post, up 10% just in 1 month from September to October. 10% increase, which is a big increase there. Up 121% from October 2024 and up 619%, 6 times from October 2023. And of course, it is over 1,000 listings now. So here is the home buying recipe. Been a while since we've looked at this, but again, it takes time. These things, they don't happen month to month. It takes months and months. And it looks like we're gearing up for a 2026 fulfillment of all these. It could drag on longer, but it looks like it's going to be at some point in there. I would say mid at the soonest, but I could be wrong. It could be longer because it has been months since the last update to this. But yeah, things move slowly sometimes. But of course, falling prices continue to fall. Wherever you live, you've probably noticed prices falling, unless you're like on the East Coast or in Quebec by the sounds of it. Falling rates, they just dropped again, a couple of rate drops in the last 2 months. High unemployment, we're at 7.1% right now. I'm thinking this is the only one I still have to make a decision on. To fulfill that 7.5%, 8%, somewhere in that range, it probably should go to 8. I was looking at the historical data. I'm going to look at it in more detail to make sure I have an accurate representation of when I do fill that in. But at minimum 7.5, but again, still to be determined on that. And there's the mortgage arrears, the latest update. And there it is on the screen. It has been updated. All right, one thing I want to talk about before I get into any news from the last week is the square footage of listings that I see out there now. What triggered me on this was, I've heard stories, mind you, I've heard a lot of stories, but I got an email from a builder and, you know, whatever, they're talking about these townhouses they have. I'm not going to name the builder. I'm not going to do that because there's a lot of builders that are guilty of this sin. And anyway, so they're talking about these 1,800 square foot townhouses. And I look at the floor plans and it says 450 square feet in the basement. Here's a little screenshot of just that clip there from the bottom of the floor plan. So it's technically a 1,350 square foot townhouse, but nowhere does it say that it's 1,350 square feet. That's another thing that got me. So it's not like they're saying like this 1,800 square foot finished living space or living area or usable area or whatever they want to call it. But the official square footage is 1,350 square feet, and with an additional 450 in the basement. Now in Ontario, we calculate square footage above grade, and other places do this too. I've had some comments from BC followers that say, you know, they calculate the garage and everything. You could put that in as a reference, but there is certain standards in certain provinces, and they change from province to province. So I want to go over just a few of those standards and how we do it. But in Ontario and on TREB, on the biggest real estate board in the country, it's above grade, and they do have a below grade section too. But above grade is very specific, and that is your official square footage. Let's start off with MPAC, the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation. And this is how they assess your taxes in Ontario. And I'm just going to scroll down here, how we assess residential properties. We go down to exterior square footage, and this is how they measure your square footage. Now, sometimes there are discrepancies between what MPAC says and what you would measure as a realtor or a private citizen, because a lot of times there is some estimations going on from what I understand. But anyway, we measure the exterior of your home to determine the total area of the inside of the building. This does not include your basement, deck, porch, garage. So it's very clear your official square footage is based on the interior of your home, and no basements, no deck, no porch, no garage. It doesn't matter if they're finished or not. They're not included in your official square footage. And when you design and buy a home in Ontario, well, the way it should be is you have an above grade official square footage. And if you want to finish the basement, that's up to you. Here's another article from Korea Cafe. This is realtor.ca here, right? These are the administrators of it. And they talk about square footage information on listings. Square footage is often a main curiosity or criteria from home buyers wanting to know if the listing they're looking at is larger than their current space. But up until now, unless the realtor added this information to the listing, it wasn't as easy for consumers to find that. Now, shares Wakan, square footage information will begin rolling out on listings starting in Alberta, which follows a residential measurement standard. So Alberta has a residential measurement standard. If there's anyone watching from Alberta, any realtors, you're probably very familiar with this. Ontario has this too, but we don't enforce it as under the Ontario Real Estate Association or under the Real Estate Council of Ontario. But here is their residential measurement standard. I'm not going to bore you with everything on here. I just want to get to the meat and potatoes of it here. So here is the residential measurement standard principles, and it talks about they must follow it and whatnot. For detached properties, measure the property using the exterior wall at the foundation. So yeah, this is how we do it in Ontario. It's the exterior. You don't measure the inside to get the square footage. You measure the exterior. We go down here to number 6, include floor levels that are entirely above grade and exclude floor levels if any portion below grade. Below grade levels may be measured, but the area must not be included in the RMS area. So it's very clear. Everything above grade, even if it's partial, if you have like a sloped hill at the back and it's a backsplit and part of that rec room or whatever on that lower level is below grade, you cannot include it. It has to be fully above grade. Even like a tiny little triangle of that is below, you can't include it. It's very clear. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments about that square footage and what you see out there and how it works in your province. Or if you're a realtor, let me know what you think. Maybe it's different from where you operate, East Coast, West Coast. I don't know, but again, it's very clear in Ontario how you measure square footage, and in Alberta by the sounds of it. So, when we have these builders that are, I call it deceptive marketing, and especially when there's no reference to the official square footage, I'd like to question them and say, okay, what's the official square footage of this unit? It should be in the contract too. So I'm guessing they added in there somewhere, because you cannot sell an 1,800 square foot house when it's in fact 1,350 and get away with that. So there's some hidden fine print in that contract, I'm guessing. All right, some quick news from X here. Rob Merceglia, my buddy there from Durham region. Check him out if you're in Durham region. He knows his numbers. And good guy there. So year-to-date reported home sales across GTA through October 31st. So this would be cumulative from January to October 31st in the GTA only by year. And you can see 2016, 99,900, and it goes down. And 2021, 105,258. And 2025, 53,049. That is the lowest in a decade and half of what it was in 2016, or less than half of what it was in 2021. So there's some big changes there. It just goes to show you how slow things are right now. And it's because of the price points and the economy and all the rest of that. I don't have to explain it to you. From Vancouver Island Guy, Canadians do not understand how bad the real estate bubble is in Canada. Just now, Ron the Mortgage Guy spoke to a house in Ajax, Ontario, selling for $1.2 million in December 2021 and just sold for $660,000, almost 50% off. 1 in 10 sales right now in Ontario is by the banks. I believe that's outside the GTA. Someone just quoted that. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I'm sure it's not far off. Not within the GTA, I believe it is in suburban Ontario. Real estate agents saying prices are going up, and Ron confirming they are coming down further. So I don't pay attention to many real estate agents, but I'm sure there are a bunch out there saying, they're going up. Rates just came down. Buy, before it's too late. It's always the same story. And a lot of people fall for it, unfortunately. Houses are selling at the real market price now, not at what homeowners want for them. I would have to disagree. They're still selling above the real market price. Maybe the real market price for this given time, but definitely they're selling for more than they should be still. From Daniel Foch, she fell behind on her mortgage. Now she's losing her home inside the heartbreaking surge of forced sales in the Toronto area. Lenders are seizing homes, especially in the suburbs, where 1 in 10 are now listed as power of sale. So there we are, the suburbs in Ontario, or maybe it's further than Ontario. But there are going to be sad stories. Up until now, we've seen a lot of just investors and speculators losing out. But you're going to see the families lose out on their homes, lose their jobs. And this is when the tough times come for good, hardworking people. But it's part of the cycle. It's sad. But, blame them or blame the speculators. These people had to pay exorbitant amount of prices for their homes, and now they're going to lose them. So, it is tough times. But again, there's victims in every scenario of, unfortunately, in real estate. Table salt, new, only 155 new condos were sold across Greater Toronto area in September, from an estimated inventory of 25,000 available, putting the months of inventory at 161 months, 13.5 years. Total obliteration. I don't know where the information came from, but I wouldn't put it past who's going to buy a pre-construction new condo at this point, or whether it's pre-construction or not. So another story here, and I actually received a couple calls in the last week or so about seniors. And they are one of the biggest population groups in homeless shelters, supposedly right now. And it's not just, people who are addicted to drugs or whatever the case. But a lot of people have this misconception. But it was very interesting having these conversations. And so there's a crisis on its own there when it comes to seniors, certain seniors. But check this out from Ryan Garriston. More and more seniors are losing their homes and being forced to live in shelters, tents, and even their cars, like this 76-year-old, and it's only going to get worse.
Andy, I'm near an emergency shelter downtown, and like elsewhere in the country, beds fill fast. But seniors are showing up in higher numbers, and experts tell me they're struggling more than ever.
A home sweet home.
For more than 2 months, 76-year-old David Turner says he's been living, eating, and sleeping in his car.
The expense of everything is just crazy.
On good days, he drives to the Charlottetown Marina to greet tourists.
Welcome to PEI, sir.
Turner says his debt mounted, and after a couple months behind on rent, his landlord evicted him. Still, he feels more fortunate than others because he has a pension. It helps, but not enough to rent right now.
Seniors are struggling because of the cost of living, the cost of rent, the lack of affordable housing.
Seniors 65 and older made up nearly 5% of users at emergency shelters like this one behind me last year. That's up from 3.3% in 2021. In Atlantic Canada, 18% of people in the same age group have poverty-level living standards, higher than any other region, according to the National Institute on Aging.
These are some of the fastest growing groups that we're seeing who are represented by homelessness and food bank usage. It's amongst older Canadians.
Dr. Samir Sinha wants to see a portion of new housing set aside for seniors. The federal government says the upcoming budget will add measures to further the new agency Build Canada Homes, which aims to double the rate of construction. An official with the Finance Department said the agency will focus on building both affordable and deeply affordable housing, calculated based on the median income of low or very low income households in a region. As for Turner, he plans to start looking for a more permanent place to live and hopes that soon this will all be in the rear view.
And that's sad. At least the guy should upgrade to a minivan or a camper. But this is the state of Canada and a lot of other places in the world, mind you. And I don't know how they're going to fix it, but it's going to take some time. Breaking, Canada Post lays off dozens of managers amid restructuring labor dispute. And that was from October 28th. Looks like a little bit of corruption here, political corruption maybe. City of Brampton pays $77.9 million for a building that sold for $32.5 million in 2020. Seller is Bikram Dillon, a friend of Patrick Brown. The facility is supposed to process speed camera tickets. Speed cameras were just made illegal by the province. Wow, it's convenient. The Ford government's new HST rebate is being criticized as too narrow in scope. The province says it's currently setting aside $500 million over 3 years, enough for 2,000 homes a year. The Minister of Housing says there's some homes in the province that would qualify. So, yeah, again, I don't know if this is just optics. Hey, we're doing what we can. We're fixing the housing crisis by reducing HST on some of these homes. You got to reduce the land cost. The land is the craziest thing. That's like a fixed cost that's so high, it's ridiculous. So, but I don't know. These politicians are scared. You saw my last video or 2 videos ago talking about the price of land. But that's the main issue to me. And of course, development charges in a lot of the cities too. But you got to bring down the cost of land. Land should be like half the price. There's no reason it should be high. The only reason it's high is because of speculation and greed. You're not, cutting down trees to make 2x4s out of it, and the operating cost to do that. It's literally just greed and land hoarders. All right, that's it for this week. As always, leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time.